Urban Rural Action is a national nonprofit organization that partners with communities across the United States to foster the community strength and resilience necessary to address our most urgent challenges together. Their cross-partisan civic participation programs bring together individuals from different ideological backgrounds, racial identities, generations, and geographical locations, among other differences. We believe that true community strength emerges from genuine relationships, enhanced collaboration skills, and a willingness to explore differing viewpoints on critical societal issues. By working hand in hand with local community organizations such as Suicide Prevention of York, we collectively address urgent challenges that impact the well-being of our communities.
One significant initiative is with our Urban Rural Action Team in York, Pennsylvania, partnering with Suicide Prevention of York, focusing on having a safe and strong community. This team is focused on a deeply pressing issue, the incidence of suicides across all age groups within York County.
Our project's ambitious yet vital goal is to achieve a measurable reduction in these incidents, thereby saving countless lives. To accomplish this, we are developing and implementing videos on various social media platforms of individuals who are affected by suicide and suicide attempts.
Our aim is to equip individuals, families, and community leaders with the knowledge, resources, and support systems necessary to identify warning signs, encourage open conversations about mental health, and facilitate access to professional help. We urge everyone to view, share, and like the videos, and to pass on to anyone they know who might be struggling with suicidal thoughts. Encourage them to engage with these materials, and most importantly, to seek professional assistance is a vital step in our collective effort to save lives and build a more supportive community.
We have more resources for the families. There's support groups now out there, which is amazing. We always try to refer our families to those pretty quickly. Many of them are not ready for it right away, but if they're struggling, as we check back with them, especially our volunteers, they'll let us know, and we'll say, that volunteer that reached out to them 3 months ago, can you reach out to them again? I feel like they could use some help. I'm Pam Gay. I'm actually York County's coroner. It's an elected position, and I've been in the position since 2014. I am a nurse by background, registered nurse, and I had worked at various hospitals for about 30 years. And one of the things that I was fairly good at was reaching out to families when they're going through crisis and terrible situations, terminal diagnoses, things like that. I had worked most recently as a sexual assault nurse, domestic violence nurse, so I felt like this was one more way I could use my forensic training that I had acquired doing that, and that I could do hopefully some death investigation. I actually had applied to be a deputy coroner, but the coroner handpicks who they want to hire. And my predecessor actually had other employees and didn't need me, I guess, at the time. So I thought, well, you know what, then I guess I'll have to do it the hard way and I'll just run for the office. That's a political elected position, but shouldn't be political, but you have to use the politics to get into the office. But once you're in there, it's really nonpartisan because you're working with people of all backgrounds. I always say nobody really cares when you're knocking on their door to give them a death notification. What party you're affiliated with, they just want somebody that listens and cares. So, how do we process experiences of being around suicide? I would say it is something that's always been of great concern to me as a coroner with my staff, because I think some of the suicides are so graphic and traumatic and can actually contribute to some PTSD among individuals who see that or witness it afterward or deal with the body or even with the grieving family. There's employee programs that the county offers, so that helps. But we try to do trainings every year, or try to encourage our staff to do trainings every year that focus on their mental health. We also have an app that we use now. We've had it, this is our 3rd year. It's just a resource with helpful documents, ways that they can connect, peaceful music to listen to. I know it sounds kind of weird, but it's a great app for some individuals. It's called Cortico, and there's several similar apps. So ours isn't the one that we're using is not the first. Not everybody likes to use it, but it has some resources available to first responders. It's designed for law enforcement. We actually had a death of one of our own who was no longer working for us at the time, but he was one of our cases, a suicide case. And it made me rethink how important it was and really emphasized in my mind that we needed to do a better job providing help for our staff. This particular individual had a lot of stuff going on outside of the office. He was no longer employed with us. However, I could see some of the same tendencies in some of the staff, as well as myself, and felt like there's things that we can do to take better care of our health. So that's one of the reasons why we have used this app. There's also more emphasis on mental health resources through our Coroners Association. We're about to have our conference next week, and there will be a segment and a training on basically taking better care of yourself so that you can be better with your families of your decedents. I can't force my staff to do these things. A lot of them come from EMS and law enforcement or medical backgrounds, so they've already seen a lot of terrible things. Going out on suicide cases especially can trigger some of those same responses, or it can bring back memories. So if we see that one of us is having difficulty, especially, we will try and encourage that individual to take a break, take some time off, talk about it with some of us. We do a lot of meals together, staff meetings and so on. Actually, we've gone a little more virtual lately, but we try to do some meals together throughout the year. I know that sounds probably corny, but we think that the meals help bond and fellowship and we can talk about things. And sometimes it's just nothing to do with what our cases are. It's just, about our lives, and just trying to understand that everybody's got their own things that they're dealing with and be sensitive to that. Those kind of things I think are really important, just to kind of bring some normalcy to a very difficult job. So we're what we call a Class 3 county. Once we get to 500,000, we could be, I think, what they call Class 2A, and that Lancaster's a Class 2A because they have slightly more population than we do. York is growing, slower than some counties, but it's still growing, and in the right direction, positively, I think. It's a good thing for us, I think, in the long run. But we also have an aging population as a result, and some of them, as they grow older, have chronic ailments and pains and terminal illness, and so some of those cases in particular become our cases, unfortunately, with suicide. We're trying to work and reach out to veterans more to try and decrease the veteran suicide. We have an emphasis on that this year through funding that we received from the Pennsylvania Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. So it's a concern as people get older. We just trying to get the message out that there's hope out there, and that your life does mean something. So I saw online these nurse coroners in other states who were bringing on volunteers. They were training them, and then they were reaching out to the families after death of their decedents and trying to connect them with various resources and support groups and faith-based initiatives to try and help them through their grief. So I thought, well, that's kind of neat. I'd like to try something like that. It makes perfect sense to me. So when I ran for coroner, I ran saying basically that I was going to promise the community that I was going to try and bring something like that to York. It took us a couple years, but in 2016, we developed our first team of volunteers. So they go through a couple nights of training on bereavement and the resources that are available, the right things to say and that kind of thing, and how to help people who've just experienced traumatic loss, because most of our losses are sudden and traumatic. So once they are trained, then they basically start getting assigned certain cases and working with those individuals. We try to offer it to all our decedent families. Not all of them choose those services, but it's worked really well. And it's just expanding because throughout the country now, this has caught on to the point where coroners and medical examiners' offices are hiring family advocates who coordinate the volunteers or coordinate paid staff to reach out to families within 1 to 2 days after the death, sometimes immediately, then try to connect them with the resources that they need so that they are not left in their grief without somebody showing that they care. And part of the reasoning being is the coroners on that scene, they do their best at the time, but we get called to another scene and we get busy, and sometimes we don't get back to reaching out to that family for quite a while. So this was a way to have more continuity, more consistency, and hopefully to prevent the cycle from continuing. So when I first started, actually the coalition, the original Suicide Prevention Coalition, before it became a nonprofit, really had been struggling to get the word out, to get into the school systems, to even get funding for all, for their initiatives. And but in 2014, we were able to get a law in Pennsylvania that required a certain part of the curriculum in public schools to be designated for suicide prevention education, as well as teachers to have to, required teachers to have a certain amount of training in that same element, basically. And that has helped significantly because it finally put it to the forefront instead of hiding it. And it's really been some of the impetus to finally get the word out there and become more public with suicide prevention. I think we've come a long way. I would say 2012-13, when there was really hardly any talk about it, very difficult to get into the school systems to talk about it. Just in a few years' time now where there's much more emphasis and actually a required part of the curriculum. We want to make sure they understand that there's hope out there, that they don't have to repeat the cycle. We are doing everything in our power to stop the cycle. Definitely, if you've experienced loss, first of all, don't be afraid to get some help, get some counseling, some support, even if it's just coming to one of our support groups that the community offers. We want to make sure that people understand that if you see certain things in a loved one, and we teach them the things to look for, we just want them to understand that this is a warning sign. Don't ignore it. Get some help for your loved one, even if you have to take them somewhere yourself, but definitely don't ignore it because many times there's subtle signs and people after the fact realize that. They go back and they think, oh, that was probably a warning sign and I should have caught that. I should have, So we're trying to teach them what to look for and not to take it lightly, to take it very seriously and get your loved one the help that they need or get yourself the help that you need.
Thank you for staying with us and watching this video. If something you've heard has struck a chord in your heart or in your mind and you'd like to learn more or talk with somebody about some of these topics and issues, we encourage you to reach out to one of the many organizations that we've listed. They focus on helping people with this subject. Many of themselves have experienced these very same concerns. If you know anyone who may find this video beneficial, please share it with them and encourage them to have a listen, or even better, listen to it with them. Thank you very much.